This is episode 28 of Pinnacle FC. Gareth Wheeler, Jake Osgathorpe with you, coming off another banner midweek. Champions League action. If you've been missing out on our Champions League podcast, what are you doing, people? We're giving you top picks and plays and prognostication week after week, and the Champions League just continues to deliver. The weekend will turn our focus to Europe's top domestic leagues. But Jake, I mean, the way that the Champions League is played out in this new format, I think it's like played into the favor of bettors because there's been more games to play. I think that the markets have been less dug in. There's been more variables to go out and make bets on as well. Just maybe an overall perspective of what we've experienced in the Champions League, because there's more games. The second leg, Fast and Furious, they're coming up next week as well.
Yeah, it's been non-stop, but it's been great. And I think the main takeaway for me from we're recording this on Wednesday, but obviously we had the Tuesday matches, is how many goals there were again. I mean, like, a lot of people I was speaking to in the betting sphere were looking at backing under goals because first legs are generally quite cagey, but this Champions League has just been wild in terms of teams, almost going for the jugular, if you like. Teams like Dortmund, usually maybe last year when they were 1-0 up in a Champions League game, they kind of maybe hold it, but they're absolutely going for the kill, trying to knock Sporting Lisbon out. And I think the benefit of doing that is that they probably can rotate a little bit next week, which means they can have a full tilt at the weekend. Same with PSG against Brest. Obviously, the two games, Juventus, PSV, and Real Madrid City, are a little bit different. But even tonight, if Atalanta can go to Bruges and win comfortably, it means they can, they don't have to rotate at the weekend, whereas the likes of Real Madrid and Man City might do because they've got such a finely poised game. But yeah, it's been entertaining, and I think ultimately attacking football is the theme of the last 2 years, really. Defensive football seems to be out the window, whether that's because of more defensive errors, the fact that a lot more teams playing out from the back, which means that you're going to give up a few sloppy goals every other week, or if it's just that the defenders are just not very good anymore. I'm not too sure, but the goal averages are through the roof, and long may it continue because, as you said, for bettors, it's brilliant. Like the line for City game was 3.25, and it cleared it very comfortably. Yeah. And I'm sure there'll be a couple this weekend that we're looking at. The line looks a little bit low.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's also getting rid of the archaic away goals rule. Like, it makes a huge difference. Like, traditionally, you score the away goal, you kind of play defensive, you play safe after that. There's no reward. So it's really opened things up. And I honestly think, Jake, I just think that the markets have been slow to adjust to that because they're expecting, first leg, teams are playing it safe. Again, there's no reward for it. So it encourages playing more aggressive throughout. And like you said, long may it continue. Let's start off in the Premier League this weekend. It's been a little bit of a break between Premier League games with the FA Cup fixtures played last weekend. The only game that we will not be covering, based on the fact that it's happening after this podcast records, it's the final Merseyside derby at Goodison Park between Everton and Liverpool, but that may play into some picks and plays this weekend as well. The big news in the Premier League this morning is Kai Havertz, the Arsenal striker, is out for the season. I know you might be saying Kai Havertz, well, a little bit hit or miss, but right now Arsenal are dealing with a little bit of an injury crisis in terms of attacking players in their side, where a player that hasn't really done much since his move to Arsenal in the summer, Raheem Sterling, might be thrust into a more significant role. They're at Leicester City this weekend. To be honest, I wasn't planning on playing this game, so I don't know how much or if the market adjusted. But Leicester City at home are a 1.5 underdogs, and you can get them on the handicap at plus 102. The thing is with Arsenal, it seems like their strength in attack is the variance, the different ways that they end up scoring goals. Obviously set piece kings, they're very good at it. I'm not sure if that changes the Havertz injury changes anything for you. I mean, Liverpool's way out to win it now, minus 438 on Pinnacle in terms of the future play to go on and win the Premier League. What are your thoughts? Because I know you've been a little bit bullish on Arsenal, trying to find ways to back them over the course of the season, but perhaps this changes things?
It does, yeah, because I was going to be backing Arsenal on the handicap this weekend before that news broke, but I think Havertz gets a bad rap. I think he's a lot more important, and just generally his all-round play is a lot more important to Arsenal than what many think. And I know people want the number 9 to be scoring goals, but when you're winning games and scoring 2 and 3 every game and your striker's not scoring, is that much of a problem? Maybe not. We saw City do it with a false nine a couple of years ago. Obviously, this is slightly different, but it's more just his pressing, his presence. So it's a massive blow. It's enough to dissuade me from getting involved with Arsenal this weekend, that is for sure. And probably going forward, any slither of hope that I had of Arsenal winning the title, having put them up pre-season, I think it's gone now with Havertz being out, because you've got Jesus out as well. Obviously, Saka's out, so you are looking extremely thin on the ground. What it looks like, I'm not too sure. Whether it's Sterling down the middle, Nwaneri on the right. I don't exactly know what it's going to look. Trossard maybe is a false nine. Probably what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's enough to put me off Arsenal for a couple of weeks until I see exactly what they're doing. And it just one of those that hammers home. Like, Arsenal probably should have done some business in January, just to add a couple more bodies.
No kidding.
Yeah.
The Ollie Watkins bid never really made sense. I never took that serious.
That reminded me of the £4 million and £1 for Luis Suarez.
Right. Yes.
How low can we go?
It's time for them to start taking things seriously. And Patrice Evra is right. Like, Arsenal or Netflix show. It's all about looking forward to next season. That's what it is. I'm tempted to make a play on Leicester City. I wouldn't talk anyone away from. I understand, but they're at home. They are terrible, but this is a game that a little bit well rested. Arsenal this winter camp, I'm not sure if it suited their needs and requirements. So it's not an official play for me, but I'd be tempted to play them. I'll keep an eye on this market heading into the weekend on Pinnacle for sure.
All jokes aside, I would look at backing Arsenal on the handicap if Gabriel was starting up front. They've got enough defensive bodies now. Calafiori centre half, Saliba centre half. Get Gabriel up front. He's your biggest goal threat in the entire team right now.
Yeah,
from set pieces, open play crosses.
Or you draw. It's like rugby. You just draw up set plays. You try to get it close. Take a corner kick.
That's what they do anyway, right? They
seems like it at times.
To try and win corners. All joking aside, if I was to have a bet in this game, I would be backing Gabriel to score, because Leicester have a weakness from set pieces. Gabriel's obviously a monster, and now that they're going to probably struggle even more from open play, they're probably going to be targeting set pieces even more. Good discussion on Arsenal, because I do think it massively changes things. Havertz being out.
Yeah. Total set at 3 in that match as well. All the lines and all the markets that we use are provided by Pinnacle, BetSmart, Bet Pinnacle. All right. I guess the marquee fixture this weekend is Manchester City and Newcastle, if you can call it that. I mean, City puts up the tifo against Real Madrid. Stop crying your eyes out to Vinicius Jr. I'm saying, please don't stop conceding. Like, that's nice. They ship goals for fun, and it's amateur hour. Ederson fits that bill. Kovacic, what's happened to him as a player? He doesn't look anywhere near up to snuff, up to par. City are still favorites ahead of this one on the handicap. You could get Newcastle at plus half a goal, meaning a win or a draw for Newcastle, plays at plus 102. City haven't had a clean sheet in 6. They played to the over 2.5 in 10 of 10. Both teams have scored in 6 of 6. And oh, by the way, they play Real Madrid midweek. Again, down a goal, going to Spain. It's going to be exceptionally difficult for them. Newcastle, they played to the over in 6 of 7. Both teams have scored in 4 of 5. I'm playing the exact same bet that I made for Real Madrid midweek. Team total over a goal and a half at plus 134. Newcastle scored 2 or more in 8 of their last 10 matches in all competitions, and I firmly do not believe that City can stop shipping goals. They started the game with 5 defenders, and they still look absolutely out of sorts defensively. So I'll keep on fading City. I'm interested to see what sort of starting 11 they'll play. They're not playing for the Premier League this year. Like, really, it's about trying to come away with a win, a decisive victory at the Bernabeu next week. That's what it's about. It's not about this game here. So I'll back Newcastle in the team total, a decent enough number for me.
Yeah, I would not put anybody off that whatsoever. It's a really, really difficult game for Pep and City to try and figure out what team he's going to play, because he's got so many players coming back from injury that just can't play 2 games a week or 3 games in 7 days. He likes of Stones, who's fragile. Diaz has just come back in as well. They lost to Kanji in midweek as well, so that adds even more issues. So we could see a couple of the young centre halves, the young defensive signings come into the team, which only enhances my confidence in Newcastle. You're probably going to have Matheus Nunes at right back, which again, if Anthony Gordon's playing, he's going to have a bit of a field day there. And Isak is just unstoppable. But I think the main thing for me where I look at this is that City are a really awkward team. Sorry, Newcastle are a really awkward team for City because of the power and the legs they have in midfield. Because that's the main area of weakness at the minute for City, is that if it's Kovacic or Bernardo, there's just no legs there. They get overrun every single time they play. And I know Joe Linton's out, but Tonali, Willock, Guimaraes, they're going to dominate that midfield against City and really put Newcastle on the front foot very quickly. I mean, if you're just looking at the fact that City have really struggled at home, recently they played 9 times in the Champions League and the Premier League. They've only won 4 times, so they've failed to win over half of those games, conceding 1.3 expected goals against per game at the Etihad, which ranks as the 10th best in the Premier League. So mid-table defence, and as I said, if there's anybody that's got even the slightest knock from that midweek match, surely you have to rest them here because they've got bigger fish to fry at the Bernabeu. Newcastle, well rested. They've had a week off. They've got the second best away process as well, which I thought was really eye-catching because they were really, really poor away from home last season. Eddie Howe's done a great job turning that around. Only Liverpool have got a better XG process when travelling than Newcastle. They won 6 straight on the road, won at Man United, won at Spurs, won at Arsenal. Only 1 defeat away against the Premier League team in the last 8 matches. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Newcastle get a result here. The game earlier in the season at St James's Park was a full-strength Man City, and Newcastle still managed to get a draw in that one, and that was at home. This is a City team still struggling. You can back Newcastle plus a half a goal, plus number. I think that's a great bet. I also think Newcastle to win's a cracking price at plus 275. I know it's a bit of a reach potentially, given how good City generally are at home, but I've seen nothing to suggest that they can deal with what Newcastle have to offer, which is just quick transitional football. You know, Isak, Murphy, Gordon, getting the ball from back to front very quickly is something that they've struggled with, have City. So Newcastle to win at plus 275. I think it's a cracking bet, especially just the way in which this falls. This is the meat between the Real Madrid sandwich. It's kind of It's kind of a bit of a look ahead game, isn't it? Where City are going to be looking to that Real Madrid game. So pro Newcastle.
Yeah, the reason why I landed on the team total is that I can't see it being a low-scoring game, so it kind of protects from a 2-2 or a 3-3, something outlandish happening, which could, honestly. So that's my only rationale, still at a plus number. Any one of those 3 bets, Newcastle on the handicap, Newcastle team total, Newcastle win outright, I get all of them, and I think a good argument can be made to make any one of those plays. When Jake jumped on this podcast with me before we hit the record button, he said the 2 big games of the weekend, City, Newcastle, and what was the other match you threw out?
Spurs, Man United.
To which I laughed. Ha, ha, ha. It was a funny joke. To which I wrote down one line in my notes, and it's actually a question. And I wrote, can both teams lose? That's what I put. Like they're going to test the laws of physics or the laws of football based upon the way that this is played out. In fairness, Spurs have done really well against United over the last couple seasons, scoring lots of goals in the process. I want nothing to do with this game, Jake. I'm staying as far away as possible.
I'm going to have a small bet.
Ooh, okay.
On this game, yeah. Man United, draw no bet, plus 103. It's made with very little confidence, but the data behind this is, admittedly, it's a small sample size because Amorim hasn't been in charge for too long, but United have played 12 matches following midweek football under Amorim. They played 8 times after a midweek game under Amorim. They played 4 times with a free week, so it's very limited sample size. But they're unbeaten when they've had a free week, which suggests to me that if you give Amorim time, he can coach a game plan to get a result. That includes a draw against Ipswich in his first game and a draw at Arsenal, a draw at Liverpool. So I think if you give him time, I think I trust him to get a result here. Obviously, taking the draw no bet means that we get our money back if the game ends all square. And just for context, after a midweek game, they've won 3 and lost 5. So not the best record. Yeah, I think if you give him time to work his magic, he's shown that he can get something ready for a one-off game. And I think that's why they probably have a good chance in the cup competitions to go far, provided that they don't play midweek weekend, because I think could catch up with them a little bit. Meanwhile, Tottenham, they've had 2 games per week since the end of November, which is 21 games in 12 weeks, I think I worked it out at. So basically 2 games every single week. So I've not been able to do the same calculations because they haven't had a free week. This is their first time with a free week. Still loads and loads of injuries. Dragusin, Odobert, Solanke, Romero, Richarlison all definitely out. Maddison, Van de Ven, Udogie, Vicario, Johnson, they're close to returning, but we're at a point where it's just why bother risking them? Keep them wrapped in cotton wool, get them ready for that Europa League run, because ultimately that's all that's going to matter for Tottenham's season. They're winless in 7 home league games. They've lost 5 of those. They did beat Man United in the Carabao Cup, but it is worth noting that Man United absolutely whooped them on XG. 2.5 to 0.7.
That game was wild.
It was wild. United lost that because of goalkeeping errors, pretty simply.
Well, but
I mean, Son
Fraser Forster was dreadful as well. It's like the goalkeepers
he didn't do very well either. Yeah, but still, that Spurs team featured Maddison and Solanke, 2 of the spine of the team that are now out. So I think there's enough for me to want to get Man United on side in some capacity. I know they got hammered in the reverse fixture at Old Trafford, but that was before Spurs had all the injuries, before they were tired from playing such a relentless schedule.
Bruno was sent off Bruno was sent off in the first half of that,
and Bruno
game
was sent
too.
off. So it's not a massively confident play. It won't be a top 3, but I do think of the 2. I think United are probably the most likely winners.
I found it amusing. You said that Amarim magic. Like, did you watch the series Arrested Development? Illusions, Michael. Illusions.
Maybe.
My magic is going to be staying away from this game as far as possible.
Name me another team who's gone to Anfield and the Emirates and avoided defeat in both.
I get it. Question. I get it. But this is Manchester United that we're talking about. They lose to bad teams. And Spurs is a bad team. Well, so there you go. What else do you have in terms of Premier League plays this week? Let's go through this really quickly because we got some big games across Italy and Germany, especially this weekend.
Yeah, I'll rattle through because I've got 3 bets that I really like. The first one is Brighton to beat Chelsea. I can't understand the price. Plus 201 literally had this exact game last week, and the price was exactly the same. Brighton were by far and away the better team on that occasion, created the better chances. Chelsea just 0.8 expected goals, failed to create one big chance, and they scored thanks to an own goal, one of the worst goalkeeping errors you'll see all season. Brighton, better XG, created 2 big chances, and as we've discussed many times on this show, Brighton against the better teams are just better. When they play against rubbish teams, they really, really struggle. So if you take a look at their record against last season's top 8, now granted, a couple of the teams that finished last season in the top 8 are not top 8 teams now, but at the time when Brighton played them, they were still, top half-ish teams. They're won 6, drawn 3, lost 2. They've beaten at home. Only Liverpool's been to the Amex and won, and that was in the Carabao Cup. They've beaten Man U, Spurs, City, Chelsea at the Amex, drawn with Arsenal. And Chelsea, I don't think it's gone under the radar just how bad they've been. The last 10 matches.
I think Maresca played his hand wrong, to be honest. He wasn't playing players who should have been in contention to play. He just wasn't making. I think it's a divided team right now. It's not very cohesive, is it?
No, and they've got a couple of sneaky injuries as well. Like Nicholas Jackson, we don't know how long he's going to be out, but he's massive.
They really miss him.
Yeah. But yeah, the last 10, they've won just 3 times, and the 3 wins came against League 2 Morecambe, Wolves and West Ham. And I would argue that against West Ham, they weren't the better team for most of that game. And against Wolves had their moments, and it was only set-piecing errors from Wolves that led Chelsea to win that one. So I think Brighton are overpriced yet again. I'm more than happy to back them. I don't know if you have a bet in that game.
Nope. Staying away. Continue on, Jake.
I have a feeling we're going to have the same bet in this one, which is Southampton Bournemouth, because I'm surprised the handicap's -1. I thought we'd be looking at -1.5, but to have the comfort blanket of a 1-0 or a 2-1 win for Bournemouth, getting his money back, I'll happily make a play because Bournemouth are very good travellers. Only Liverpool, Newcastle have got better underlying process away from home than Bournemouth. They're unbeaten in 7 away games, won 5 of those. If you back this bet blindly across those 7, you'd be well in profit with 4 wins and 1 push. Southampton is just the worst team in the league. Like, I don't need to explain too much more, but
No.
I think context is required to just how bad they are at St Mary's, because their underlying process at St Mary's is nearly a full expected goal per game worse than next worst, which is Leicester. Like, they are terrible at home, and away from home they've actually got a better process, which is very, very surprising. You don't find many teams like that. And if you'd have backed the -1 handicap in Southampton games at home this season, you'd be 1-5, 3 pushes and 2 losses, so you'd be in a healthy profit yet again. And since the November international break, it's 4 wins and 2 pushes. So they've been absolutely smacked 4 times and lost by a single goal twice. I think Bournemouth are more than capable, especially after a full week's rest again, to go there and do some damage. I mean, Burnley went there last week and won, for God's sake.
I'm greedy. It's team total week. Bournemouth team total over 2.5. But at plus 154 is worth it for me. You mentioned it. Southampton have played 11 games at home, 1-1-9, 30 goals conceded, which is the most, but their expected goals against is 35.61. Those numbers courtesy of Understat. Meanwhile, Bournemouth, the third best away expected goals at over 25 in just 12 games. They scored 2 at Everton, 5 against Forest, 4 against Newcastle. Like, they're scoring goals for fun and going up against the worst defensive team. It's not even close in the Premier League. That, for me, in that range at plus 154, it's worth a play for me. So I'm getting greedy here. That's how bad Southampton are. And your final play in the Premier League is?
My final play is Crystal Palace to beat Everton.
Here we go. I'm getting greedy. I'm even greedier for this game. This is going to make one of my bets of the week. I'll let you share your rationale, then I'll add on top. How's that?
Yeah, again, a bit like the Man United play, where it's I'm confident but not super confident. I think the main reason why I want to back Palace is because Everton are playing in midweek against Liverpool. It's the final Merseyside derby. They're going to be physically and probably more emotionally drained after that match. They're already missing a lot of key players: Mangala, McNeil, Calvert-Lewin, Brozier, Coleman, Patterson, all missing. So it's a thin squad, a draining game. It's not ideal to have another one 3 days later. Palace are just a very, very solid team, aren't they? All competitions, 4 defeats in the last 20. Come against Fulham, Arsenal twice, and Brentford. 10 wins in that period. Good draws against Newcastle, Villa, Man City, Bournemouth, Chelsea. So just a very solid side. Underlying process is positive, but the nagging doubt for me is that they've struggled to get going at Selhurst Park. They've won 4 times in 14 home games all season with 5 defeats. But if you look a little bit more recent, it's 3 wins, 3 draws, 3 defeats in the last 9 home games. But they have played a fairly tough schedule: Spurs, Fulham, Newcastle, City, Arsenal, Chelsea. So I think 5 of those are currently in the top 9. So against Everton, who are going to be physically tired, don't have the opportunity to rotate too much, I think -104 just looks a little bit big to me. I'd probably back it down to -115, something like that.
Okay. Swing for the fences with me. Let's go for a grand slam here. Let's go Palace to win and under 2.5 at plus 314. It's in the winner total goals section that you can find on Pinnacle. Everton, like you said, coming off a midweek against Liverpool, big game. Everton being shut out in 5 of their last 10 games before the Liverpool fixture. Their expected goals away from home is the worst in the Premier League at 10.57 in 11 games, and they've only scored 7 goals away from home. That's 3 less than Southampton. Meanwhile, Crystal Palace have been locked down defensively, 5 clean sheets in their last 6 games. And the reason you can find and make the play, Palace to win to 0 at plus 217, but I'm banking on the fact that Palace won't score 3. I mean, that's the bigger decisive factor for me. And I look at their last 11 games, they've scored 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, nothing, 1, 2. Like they don't score a ton of goals, and they only have 11 goals scored at home in those 12 games. So that looks to me a risk worth taking with the reward plain to see. Palace clean sheet, or well, it has to be a clean sheet. Palace win and under 2.5 at plus 314. Let's go. That's a grid play for me. So
nice.
One other one quickly from the Premier League. I can't believe that Fulham and Forest have a total of 2.25 at minus 116. They have to play the over. It's like an auto play for me. Fulham have played to the over in 7 of 9, and both teams have scored in 7 of 9, and they've scored 2 or more goals in 8 of their last 9 games. And Forest have gone over in 4 of 5 and have scored 23 goals in their last 9 games. I know one of their matches they scored 7, but still, even take away that match, that's over 2. I mean, this total's way too low, and when I see that, I have to make that play.
Yeah.
So
I like it. I think maybe that line was set by someone who only watched Fulham versus Man United.
That's
and thought, well, they're good at defending, but they can't.
Like, Forest has been a good defensive team because on the balance of it, they have. But even when you look at the underlying data, they're still like kind of mid-table in terms of goal production. So to me, 2.25 in the Premier League. This isn't Serie A. This isn't La Liga. Like that's just an automatic overplay for me. Speaking of La Liga, any play? It's
Lovely
a thin week for me in Spain. I'm not sure where you stand.
It's thin, but I have one play that I really, really like.
Okay.
And it comes from Osasuna versus Real Madrid, where I think we could all jump aboard Osasuna at minus 115 on the handicap. Madrid's injury problems well documented before their Champions League match, and their back four in that game of Valverde, Garcia, Tchouaméni and Mendy. I mean, they've got no option but to play again this weekend or bring a couple more youngsters in, which again only weakens them against Osasuna. The fact that they have that second leg as well, we could see a couple of their starters rested, the likes of Bellingham, maybe Vinicius. I thought it's quite interesting if you look at their games following a midweek this season. So at home, at the Bernabeu after a midweek game, they're 7-1-1 with a 78% win ratio. But away from home, they're 2-2-1. So they've only got a 40% win ratio. And granted, it's a smaller sample. But it does show you that when they go away from home following a midweek match, they don't usually have it their own way. And the last time we saw that was at Espanyol, where they actually lost 1-0. Osasuna are a much better team than Espanyol. They're not an ideal opponent. They've only lost twice at home all season long. Betis and Bilbao. They've already beaten Barcelona, beaten Sociedad, drawn with Villarreal and Rayo Vallecano. So that's 4 of the top 7 that they've taken points off. They've only played 5 of them. So I think that this is a great spot for Osasuna to get a result. +1 handicap. So if they lose by a single goal, you get your money back. I wouldn't put anybody off backing them to win either, to be honest, because I think Real Madrid have got, again, like the Man City game, they've got bigger fish to fry. They are the Champions League club. They cannot be going out of the playoff. And whereas, if you potentially lose ground in the La Liga title race, you've still got another 15 games to catch it up. You don't have that opportunity in the Champions League. If they lose to City by 2 goals, they're out. And they've already got a 1-point cushion on Atletico Madrid as well. So I think if Ancelotti's probably put his priorities in the Champions League basket, as he should, because you can recoup in the league, which I think represents a great opportunity for Osasuna.
Same play for me, the exact one. Osasuna, just on the handicap, though. Tempted on the Friday fixture to play Getafe on the handicap at +0.5 goal. It's pushed out to minus 114. There's been some movement. They're at Girona, but the total set at 2 here. These two sides always played a 1-0. So for me, it's worth the punt. And Getafe's come up with some pretty decent results over the last 4 to 6 weeks. So I think they're a team that's trending in the right direction, and they just don't concede goals. That's it from La Liga for me.
Same.
It could be a banner weekend in Serie A. We don't have much time left in this podcast, but let's get to it. Game of the weekend, 5th place Juventus against 2nd place Inter. I think backing Inter at +128. I can't believe Inter are at +128 when Juventus need to play PSV. Still plenty to play for. They won midweek 2-1. Next week, they played with a back four Juve of Weah, Gatti, Vega, and Lloyd Kelly. They won 3 in a row, but the wins came against Empoli, Como, and PSV. I know they haven't lost at home, 5 wins, 7 draws, but Inter's a really good away team. 9.6 expected goals against in Serie A is tops. Inter, there's no way around it. They're a top side. Just keep in mind, last time they played to an outrageous 4-4, 11 points separate these two sides. Like, an Inter only a point back in Napoli. This one, everything skews Inter for me, and at plus 128, that's a locked and loaded play for me.
Yeah, you've got my backing on that one. I think the only difference I'm going to take them on the handicap instead. Just because of the fact that Juve are unbeaten, the handicap's at minus a quarter. So if it does end in a draw, which is likely given how Juventus kind of operate and the fact that you've got two really strong backline defensive processes, then you get half your money back. But yeah, it's a big week for Juventus, isn't it? They've got to go to Eindhoven. Inter, as you said, best travellers in the league, 8-3-1, comfortably the best underlying process. I personally think that Inter are a class above. They've got an extra day's rest and no upcoming midweek games. So everything in terms of that, the intangibles is Inter's favour as well as the tangibles. So yeah, all aboard the Inter train.
I'm actually surprised that you can get it at plus 128. So, I mean, it seems to be some really good value there. Also, another matchup between two top 5 teams. 4th place Lazio taking on top of the table Napoli. No firm play for me, but I lean heavily to Lazio on the 0 handicap at minus 108.
My lean as well, yeah.
They played back-to-back games in the Coppa Italia in the league, and Lazio won them both and looked good doing so. Lazio are, for me, like, they're coming off smashing Monza. It was a cracking bet last week. 4.43 XG in that game, by the way. Yeah, I think Napoli, like, their transfer business in January didn't make a whole lot of sense for me. A team that's top of the table, you lose one of your top players and you don't kind of replace them in a sufficient way for me. I think that Lazio is the lean in play here. And I look at Inter in terms of a future play at minus 120 to win Serie A. I think there's some value in that. I think that Napoli might stall out here. I think they've benefited greatly the fact that they haven't played Champions League, Europa League football. Well, some of their main contenders have, but I think things have evened out now, and I think that Inter are a good play in terms of future bet as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think the interesting thing for me about this game is that both teams have pretty identical underlying processes. So if you're just looking at it from a process perspective, then Lazio should be about plus 130 because they're level-ish on the underlying process, and Lazio got home field advantage. But yet we're getting such a big price for Lazio to get the win based on league position and results. Yeah, I think. I mean, you're not ruling out Atalanta yet, are you, for the title?
I mean, they're way out. What are they, plus 1,000 or something? I think
plus
that
1,100.
I think that Inter is going to win this. I think that Inter, the most complete
so
team.
as well.
I really, you know how I feel about Atalanta, but I think I'm not betting against Inter. I'm not saying the most complete side.
I'm not recommending that. I think Atalanta should be a little bit shorter.
Yeah,
just
that's
based
fair.
on the fact that they've got a nice run of fixtures now. They've got 3 teams coming up that are all in a relegation battle. Then they go to Juventus. Then they host Inter Milan, which I think is quite important to have that game at home. They also play at home to Lazio, who are a very good home team themselves. And then they finish with a nice run of fixtures. So if they can get within touching distance, they might be able to rattle off a few wins. But they might be juggling Champions League as well. Anyway,
plus 1,100, by the way, Atalanta futures play on Pinnacle. Go ahead.
I'd make them maybe plus 800, something like that. Yeah, the other bet, probably my favourite bet of the week, is Fiorentina to beat Como at minus 102. I was shocked to see this price. Como are getting beaten everywhere they go. Looks like they're going to get relegated. They're definitely going to be there or thereabouts come the end of the season. And Fiorentina, they're 7-1-2 at home the last 10. So they won 7 of the last 10. They've got the 3rd best home record in the division. Underlying process is very, very strong. They hammered Inter Milan in that rearranged fixture 3-0 last week. At home, and Como's 2nd worst travellers in the league, lost 7 of their 12. I thought the interesting stat that I found was that they've generally been, when they played away from home against good teams, they've been comfortably beaten. So they lost to Juventus. They had a freak result at Atalanta where they managed to win, but lost to Napoli, lost to Inter. They drew with Lazio. Lazio had a man set up in the first half and then lost to Bologna. And I think Fiorentina, look at their league position, look at the process, they're in that group of teams. I think that minus 102 is not a reflection at all of the golfing class between the two.
All right. That's it from Serie A. We'll move forward quickly to the Bundesliga. Probably the game of the weekend across European football. It is Bayer Leverkusen against Bayern Munich, second place side taking on the league leaders in Bayern Munich. Yet there's an 8-point gap between these two sides in the table. This looks to be Leverkusen's last stand. Do they take full advantage of it, Jake? How are you looking at this game?
Yeah, very much the same way as what you've described. It is last chance saloon. I think if Bayern go there and win, it's nailing coffin title over. But I do think there's value in backing Leverkusen on the handicap.
Yeah,
Plus
me too.
0.25 handicap at -106. A couple of reasons. Obviously, Leverkusen's home form is very good. They're actually unbeaten in 17 at home. The only defeat came on the opening weekend to Leipzig. This game comes in between a Champions League playoff against Bayern. I think if Bayern's Champions League playoff was the other way around, so they were playing at home first, I think they'd have the tie wrapped up against Celtic. But obviously, we're recording this Wednesday. They could still smash Celtic to bits, but Celtic at home are generally a much tougher opposition, so it could be a case that tie's still alive, which could maybe come into thinking. And yeah, I think this is a game where Leverkusen simply have to get a result. Just a final point: Bayern Munich's results against good teams away from home this season, by my book, they've only played 4 good teams. Lost at Villa, drew with Frankfurt, lost to Barca, drew with Dortmund. Leverkusen are definitely in that class, and I think this is an opportunity to back against Bayern.
Yep, Leverkusen hasn't lost to Bayern Munich in their last 5 meetings, including a 1-0 win earlier this season. Manuel Neuer was sent off early, but still Leverkusen look comfortable, they look confident when they play Bayern Munich now. There's been an evening of sorts in terms of where those two teams stand. So at plus a quarter of a goal at a decent number at -106, I will back that as well. 2 other games I'll mention quickly before we run. Mainz, I'm not jumping off their train despite some stumbles in recent weeks where some draws turned out, based on the data, they should have been wins but ended in draws. They play Heidenheim, who are awful. Heidenheim 4 losses and no wins in their last 5. They've been the first to concede in their last 5. First half loser in 4 of 5. Their only win in the last 10 games was at Union Berlin, had a player sent off in the first half of that game. And they're the worst team at home, 1-1-8 in their last 10. And 4 points is the worst in terms of the form table. And Mainz, they played a tough schedule. 19 goals scored away. They can score goals away from home at plus 112. I think there's value there. And then the kings of the over in the Bundesliga is Stuttgart. They take on the runners-up in terms of that category in Wolfsburg. The total is just at 3. You're not getting a whole lot of juice at -117. Stuttgart 25-15 in 11 games at home. Wolfsburg 22-14 in 10 away games. And the data backs it up as well. These two sides played to a 2-2 earlier this season, and Stuttgart could have had 5 goals in that game, honestly. So the over's a decent play for me in that one as well. Anything else in Germany, or is that it?
No, just the big one for me.
Brilliant. Your top 3 bets of the week are, Jake, let's make them official.
Top 3, Fiorentina to win at -102, Bournemouth -1 on the Asian handicap against Southampton, and Osasuna +1 Asian handicap against Madrid.
Brilliant. Look, I've been on a roll as of late. I built up a nice little pile of profit. Let's go plus money weekend this week here on Pinnacle FC. Yeah, number 3, Newcastle team total at plus 134 at City. Inter to beat Juventus plus 128. And the Crystal Palace special this week. Palace to win at under 2.5 at a whopping plus 314. That's all for us this week. Champions League midweek action upcoming. We're looking forward to that. And please hit the like button, smash it, subscribe to this podcast, Pinnacle FC. Thanks for this, Jake. We'll do it all again next week. And thank you, the listener, for tuning in as well. I'm Wheels, he's Osgathorpe, and this has been episode 28 of Pinnacle FC.